Most human beings would prefer to be taken care of than to be free. I'll give you my freedom, you give me free health care. I'll give you my freedom, you give me free education. You can have my freedom.
An evolutionary psychological perspective, it makes sense.
That's right. That's the reason you need a higher principle than evolution to guide your life by, which is why ultimately I do believe this is a religious battle.
The Christian moral framework versus an absent moral framework. Why do we have the value of innocent until proven guilty? Because we were raised by a culture that valued that. If you were raised in a different culture on the other side of the planet, they would not have the same value. In fact, there have been many countries that have said the inverse. It is better that 10 innocent people suffer than one guilty person escape. We in the United States hold an inverted view of that. And so I read about the Fourth and Fifth Amendment, the presumption of innocence, the writings from the founding fathers, and the praise for Blackstone's formulation. And then I discovered his formulation was rooted in the Bible. And I said, that's fascinating. These stories from religion were carried on and left within us by the previous generation. Now people like Bill Maher say they don't believe in any of that stuff, not realizing he would have never known of that concept were it not passed down to him. When you look at other countries that did not have the same religious values, they don't have this. They have a presumption of guilt. You get locked up and then we'll figure it out. You get a generation of people who say they're atheists, but still hold a lot of those a lot of that Christian moral framework. And now we're entering a period where you have a generation with no moral framework at all. And if there's no moral framework, then there is no truth but power, which is what we're starting to see.
If you cut flowers from the soil that nurtured them, you could look at the flower, and for a couple of days it looks like it doesn't need the soil that nurtured it, but it will wither and die. The same with ethics in the Western world. They were nurtured in religious Judeo-Christian soil. You rip those ethics from that soil, they will last for a generation or two, just like the flower will for a day or two, and then they will wither and die. And that is exactly what we are seeing happening now. And that is why the founders of the country wrote that we have inalienable rights from the Creator. If God did not say murder is murder wrong? I debated this at Oxford many years ago against the professor of moral philosophy at Oxford. And he's an atheist. And he said, of course, Prager is right. If there is no God, there is no objective morality, only subjective. You can say, I believe murder is wrong, but you can't say murder is wrong. Only if there is something that transcends the human that says murder is murder wrong.
I think, are you saying, you may be indicating that there's a moral absolute, but
if there's no moral absolute, then murder isn't wrong. The fact that people don't live by their own values does not mean that the values are irrelevant. You could point to any number of religious people who have screwed up their own religion, but you can't live without the principles.